So how are you this evening?
I'm doing pretty good. I've been looking forward to our meeting.
Yeah,
Thank
me
you for taking
too.
the time.
Absolutely. Well, I think that when you emailed me, the questions you had are going to be so valuable for everybody. So I thought, let's record it. And
Yeah,
I
definitely.
can't remember your questions now. So hopefully you remember what they were.
I have them written down and I was reviewing them because I couldn't remember what I asked either.
Oh, good. Okay.
Um, I know, so there was two of them. So in the past, I was trained mostly in script reading.
Mhm.
And one of the scripts that I would use, and this was actually in a birthing class that used hypnosis. They would have a suggestive script that the parents would, before they went into hypnosis, write down all their fears and phobias surrounding um, birthing or becoming a parent, any inhibitions that they have, writing it down consciously, making a list of it, and then reviewing it before hypnosis, but then folding it up, and then go into hypnosis. And then I would guide them to go to maybe like a pit towards a hole in the ground that would lead to a big fire or to a garbage disposal, something like that. And they would throw their list into it, and then it would be incinerated or just gone forever. And then whenever they came out of hypnosis, they were instructed to not even look at the list and just throw it away. And I was wondering what you thought about that. I mean, it's pretty, to me, it sounds pretty much just like suggestive hypnotherapy. And I was just wondering, I mean, that's a lot of separate topics. It could be totally unrelated topics all at once. How effective do you think that could be?
Um, I mean, I don't ascribe to it because I think that, each of those fears and phobias, now, if it's just around having, not just, but if it's around one topic, like having a baby, of course, there's going to be fears and anxiety and all of these things. I just don't think that you're really going to effectively remove that, with the wave of a wand or throwing it into a pit somewhere. Now, I do have a technique that I use where we put it in a box and we tie it and have balloons and it floats away. But I do that after we've done a lot of deeper work around the fears and phobias. So just whatever um, scraps are left over
Hmm.
after really addressed what is there. Um, again, that type of work is very much like mowing the weeds down,
Hmm.
and then they're going to sprout up again because the roots of them are going to still be there. So it's much better to go in. So if you're working with let's say, new parents, and they have concerns about bringing a child into the world and their adequacies and, just everything that goes with that, I would schedule several sessions with them and individually, mother and father, and go in and use the techniques that you're learning in this course. Object imagery. How does that fear feel on your body? Oh, I feel it in my chest. Okay, if it had a shape and a color, what would it be? And then actually work with it, or maybe there's some other type of fear and you use secondary gains and parts therapy. What's the benefit of being concerned about this issue? And what's the detriment of having the concern, or anxiety? Let's say something is a little more escalated than concerned. What's the detriment? What's the benefit of just letting it go and trusting that it's going to be okay? And what would be the benefit of, or what would be what's the benefit and detriment of, the anxiety? And if you let go of the anxiety, what would be the benefit and detriment? And then go into parts therapy, the part that wants to have the anxiety and the part that doesn't want to have that, and have the conversation. And maybe there's some real concerns, well, my mother lost a child, or You know, the doctor thought maybe there would be a health issue, or we have hereditary problems, or whatever, you know, some real concerns. We don't want to just pretend that we can just throw that away. No, those are real concerns. But then we're bringing them into light here and rationally discussing them and looking at that. Okay, what are the chances that that's going to happen? You know, well, you know, it's probably only 10%, or maybe it's, well, it's 90%. You know, we've got this genetic thing on both sides of the family. You know, there's some real concerns with something like that. Then you want to talk to them about how will that anxiety help? You know, okay, you've got a problem, you've got a real world problem. And we're not going to dismiss it like it's not there. But how does worrying about it help? Or does it just put more negative energy into it and deplete you of energy and make you tired and all of that? So, you know, so then they can start looking at that differently. Yeah, that is a concern. That is something that's real. But my being anxious about it isn't going to help. In fact, the baby is picking up on all the energy, all the adrenaline, all of that. And so that's the environment. And the baby is picking up those clues, thinking, oh my God, I'm going to come out of here and I'm going to have a defect, you know, a defect or a problem. And, you know, the world is a scary place and I'm not going to be a whole and healthy baby, because that's what the mother is feeding it with, the anxiety. And so you want to get them to say, okay, there's a realistic issue. We will do everything we can. You know, what are all the things that you can do? Are there medications? Is it yoga and meditation? Is it, you know, wait and see, you know, do everything you can. And then at that point, it's got to be faith, right? It's just got, you've got to just relax and put all the positive energy into that.
Okay. But during therapy, I wouldn't ask or suggest, would you be able to do yoga or medication or anything? All that has to come from the client. Is that right?
Well, there's a fine line. So, so you would find out from them, you know, and if they say, well, you know, there are medications to handle this, you know, if at this point, you know, they probably already know. If they've talked to their doctor and the doctor says, okay, we have concerns about this, they would already know if there's a medical track, you know, medications, surgeries, or whatever. We do not suggest that you need medication or you need to stop medication or you need, you know, we can't go that far, but you could say, are there things that you could consult with your doctor about, you know, maybe concerning medication or surgery or other, you know, other things that you might need to be doing. And you can suggest things, you know, well, what we want to do is ask intelligent questions, right? Are there other things that you could do? And maybe they say, well, you know, breathing exercises or yoga or something like that. I mean, you can suggest those things. You could say there are a lot of other, you know, modalities that might be very useful to you, like breathing and yoga and meditation. Have you ever considered any of those? You're not prescribing, you're not saying you need to go to 10 yoga sessions. That's prescribing.
Okay.
What you're saying is, you know, because sometimes, I mean, we might know all the options, and because we're in this work, right? And we've met yoga people, or maybe we go to yoga, or, you know, whatever, we do acupuncture, all those things. But there are a lot of people who just have no clue, you know, they just don't know that there's the options out there. And so talking to them about consulting with their doctor or a naturopath where there may be some other kinds of alternative practices that would be really helpful in this situation, you know,
Mhm.
but you're not prescribing it. You're just helping them to discover that there are other options.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah,
Is-
because my next question was gonna be, what if they just don't know and they just say, "I don't know." But you answered it. So,
Yeah.
okay.
So usually when we're going to make a suggestion like that, um, in most contexts, and I can't think of a context where it wouldn't be true, you want to make several, like several options, throw out, not just say, oh, yoga would be good for you. You'd say, have you ever considered some alternative practices like breath work and yoga and acupuncture and maybe physical therapy or blah, blah, blah. So,
Mhm.
and then they can say yes or no, or I tried it and I hate it or whatever. They still have their options. But you're not prescribing it. You're
Okay.
just you're just helping them to broaden their perspectives on things. My mother would have never thought of yoga and
Mhm.
a naturopath, right? Um, so, some people just don't have that in their vision.
Mhm. Okay. Um, the other question, so it was concerning pain, and I don't have the question from my email right in front of me, but I was going through the modules and it was talking about relieving pain that there was that the client's already been checked out for, and that there's really no real cause. And
A medical cause.
I
Uh,
guess that would be considered more like acute pain with no medical cause. Um, but my question is what technique would you use if we do know the medical cause? If it's chronic pain. And the example I used is I know someone who has a broken back. They've been in that situation with pain for over 30 years. They've had a morphine pump, uh,
mm.
and recently had to have the morphine pump removed due to an infection. And so now they're in even more pain with no morphine or no other help. What suggestion, what type of therapy would you go for at that point?
Well, so one of the limitations of our work is when like something physical has happened like that has created a misalignment in the body or something like that, something drastic. It's harder. I just want to say it's a little more difficult, but we can certainly help with relieving it. So, or a person who's got stage 4 cancer,
Mm.
we can help them be more comfortable or more less anxiety around the condition. We can help with a lot of things, and we can even help with the root cause of something like that, of a progressive disease like cancer, MS, fibromyalgia. But when it's gone to a really, you know, deep stage, um, the chances of us actually curing or healing it are very slim. We can't perform miracles. But if we get in, if we start working with a cancer patient early on, we can get to the root cause of that. And if we do a really good job and they do a really good job, yeah, it can go into remission. We can turn that around. I mean, not always guaranteed. We can't make that claim, but we have a chance
High
of
potential.
having that. So back to your client with the back, you know, that's going to be a rough one, right? Um, However, from my perspective, my own philosophy, we can start working on them to rebuild their body differently. So we want to get into the subconscious mind, which we do. but we want to target the part of his brain, his mind, that is regenerating cells,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because what's happening, you said 30 years?
Give or take. It's been
Okay,
a
so 30 years. So for 30 years, he's been focused on, it was an accident. That's what you said, right?
Yes.
I had an accident. My back is broken. I'm in pain. This is me forever and ever. This is my life. And so he's been feeding his
Mm-hmm.
own body this message. And so the body is saying, this is our life and this is what it's going to be like. And it keeps getting fixed wrong, right?
I
It
see.
it keeps getting fixed in the same way as this, dysfunctional position. And I'm not saying we can perform miracles, but one book that you really, I recommend this to all my students, is The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton.
Yes, I've read that.
It's amazing. So what he teaches us, and he's a cellular biologist, what he teaches us is that the consciousness is what triggers, what, communicates to the cells as they're dividing and as they're producing and recreating. And in 30 years, what do they say? We replenish all of our cells every 7 years or something, right?
Right.
Which is a Saturn thing. I just realized Saturn makes the major points in our chart every 7 years. Okay,
Interesting.
yeah, a little.
Huh.
See, 30 years is the Saturn return. So he's gone one whole Saturn cycle
Oh.
generating his bones, which are ruled by Saturn, all this structure stuff,
Mhm.
rebuilding his bones in a single pattern of what he keeps feeding it, right? So what
Mhm.
we want to do, at least the way I would look at it, my mission would be, let's go into the subconscious mind. Let's go take a look. So, you're probably way too young to remember the movie, was it called The Incredible Journey or something, where the people got in a little submarine and they went into
I
other,
remember that. Did they shrink down?
yeah, they shrunk
Yep,
down
I
and then
remember
they
that.
went through the system and they could look at all the body, right?
Mhm.
It's like that. So you want
Yeah.
their consciousness to go in there. What do you see? How do you see it? Because the way that his subconscious mind sees it is the way that it's being told to the cells to generate. So if
Mhm.
he sees it, red and pulsing and flaring up and, shooting out nerves and all of this, then the cells are like, oh, this is what we're supposed, these are our marching orders, right? And so
Mhm.
to go in there with the tools that we have. So we would use object imagery,
Okay.
and we would go, he would go in to his own body. He would take a look at how he sees it. He would give you that image. He would describe that to you. And when clients have a hard time, they go, oh, I don't know, I don't see anything. What I do is I tell them, if I gave you a life-size poster of you and some crayons or markers or whatever, and I told you to draw on here so that when I look at that poster, I know exactly what you're feeling, exactly what you're experiencing.
Mhm.
Suddenly, I say, okay, how did you draw it? How does that look? And suddenly they're able to, oh, well, I did all this black stuff and then there's red things shooting out and there's, whatever. And they start describing it. So if they say they don't get it, then just have them draw the picture on the wall, on the poster. So then they tell you what it looks like and how it operates. And then we would want to talk to it, the dysfunctional part, the hurting part, and ask it what it needs. Just, be creative with your questions. What does it need? What would it take to make it better? Um, questions like that. Like, what else do you know about this? Why Why is it continuing to be like this? Sometimes the body will say, yeah, because it needs to, this needs to be moved. Maybe he needs surgery to move the bone or take out the nerve or something. But usually they can get a pretty good picture of what's happening and have the communication. I say things like, if that red ball of pain was like a cartoon character and could actually talk to you and you could communicate, what would it tell you that it needs? What do you need to do differently in order for it to settle down? Sometimes it's just dealing with the trauma. It was an accident, right?
He was doing construction work and the wind caught a door and twisted his back. So it was a simple mistake. So he's probably angry at himself, and he was carrying it alone, not with a partner. So I think he was supposed to, and that's how he is. I'll do everything myself. So
See, and
yeah.
there's things, usually even with injuries, there's the lesson, it's like, why was it that injury, right? And why did it hit him there? So those are always very interesting questions. Why was it that injury? Maybe it was a lesson, and we'd have to conjure this up from him. We can have ideas, like I'll get ideas, it might be this, but then I want them to say it. I just ask questions to get them to bring that up. So I might have suspicions, and sometimes I'm wrong. So I don't want to put my opinion there, but my opinion helps me to formulate the questions. So then I might say, okay, what does it have to say? Or maybe he's talking about the injury and say, well, I just decided I would do it all myself, and then I might ask, is that something you do frequently? When you're not supposed to, you just take off and do it on your own. And then maybe that red ball of pain, I'm just creating an image, that red ball of pain maybe says, well, you need to learn that you need to be able to have others help you. Because now with his pain, I bet you he's not so independent like that, right?
Actually, he's probably in his late 60s, and he's trying to build himself a house now. And I would imagine that's why he got an infection. He wasn't taking care of himself. He's working on building a house himself, and now he's in a worse predicament. So yeah, very stubborn.
Yeah. So when this comes to light in your session, so he doesn't like help from others, he wants to do it all himself, now he's got this injury, now he's got the infection, just draw some threads between those. What do you see as a similarity here, right? What's going on? What do we learn from this? If this were a lesson that your subconscious mind wanted to give you, what would that lesson be? And what do you need to do differently? So it could be that simple. It could be as simple as he starts asking for help and working as a team. And you might want to ask him why, if these are his words, is that your observation, or is that kind of coming from his words that he just likes to do everything himself?
My observation. I haven't talked to him about hypnosis at all, but if I wanted to offer, I wanted to check with you first.
Yeah. So you could observe that, you could say, and it's more of the Gestalt part of the therapy is, I'm observing that you have a tendency to want to do things on your own and not ask for help. Is that true for you? Right. And if he says, absolutely, I don't want anybody to help me, I want all the, I'm going to do it my way. Right. You could do secondary gains and parts therapy. So what's the benefit of doing it all yourself? right? Well, I get all the glory. It's my accomplishment. I don't have to agree with anybody else. I can just do it my way. And what's the downside? Well, I've got to do all the work. It causes an injury, right? So you do the secondary gains and then go to parts therapy. The part of you that wants to do everything on your own, and the part of you that perhaps is understanding now that sometimes you need help, that there are rational times, that where help would be appropriate. And then have that conversation. I just want to do it myself. I know, but sometimes it would be easier and you'd get it done faster and you wouldn't get injured. Yeah, but I need all the glory, and you just go back and forth until they come to an agreement. And if he's really stubborn, it might take a while. But, I would just go in and, you're going to want to sell him a group of sessions. It's not going to happen in one session. You're going to offer him and say, one session is not going to get us the results that we want. So what I tell people is like, I don't want you to waste, I don't want you to waste your money or my time if we're only just going to kind of fluff up the can of worms and we're not really going to get a result for you. I'd rather you invest and I invest in you, and we're going to see this thing through so we can have some measurable results.
How does that work with subsequent sessions if they did parts therapy and came to an agreement with the left and the right side? Do you go back and do it over again, or?
No, so if they agree, it depends on what they agree to. So if they agree that, yes, there will be times when it will be appropriate to ask for help, and then they both agree to that, then the next time, you could just say, how's that going? Does it feel like that's, have you been, you just want to check and make sure that's holding, and making sure if there, on something like that, it's hard. It might be months before he actually has a project he needs help. But in his case, if he's building this house, have you hired somebody to help you? Have you, what has changed? And if nothing has changed, then you'd want to look for what's the block. So now they've agreed, but now you'd be looking for a block instead of resolving a contradiction. You'd be looking, okay, what's preventing you from moving forward with getting the help?
Okay.
Yeah, so it would change up a little. I mean, I have clients where we're doing kind of the same thing every time, but maybe not on the same subject. So once he agrees, then that's kind of done. But if he's now sabotaging that, then you would look at that,
It just needs to be analyzed each time.
Yeah.
So know which direction to go.
Yeah. So so you would just be checking in. How's it going? Like I'm working with a lady for smoking right now, and she is really stubborn. I mean, she's like, you got to help, every time she's like, we got to work on my smoking. It's like, okay, we've done this 7 weeks. At what point are you going to do your part, right? But what's happened was every session we dealt with a different piece of the foundation of why she's smoking. And so she thinks you're not working on the smoking, you're working on my anxiety.
Yes.
Right. But your anxiety is what drives you to smoke. Right. And so we've been chipping away kind of at the perimeter, and now we're starting to dive into the main core thing. And so, yeah, we're getting to listen, but anyway, what?
That kind of reminds me of, I think, well, in one of your books and in the modules, you mentioned that you worked with a client who had OCD, and it was a video game that you had him visualize, but he had 6 sessions. And so whenever I read that, I was wondering, how can you make 6 sessions if he already slayed the dragon? in the first one, or did
Right.
he? I guess I assumed he did in the first one.
It was so many years ago. And we did that. They were hour-long sessions. And we must have been kind of investigating how it was operating. And then he slayed the dragon. And then we used some of the other sessions for getting better grades, because
Oh,
he was
that's right.
in high
You did
school.
say that.
So then we focused on sports and grades and other things. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then my last question was, the first session that I've done with your method,
Uh-huh.
was a real tough session. It was a dream analysis. And so even though I don't, and so far where I've gotten in the modules, there hasn't been any talks about dream analysis. But I figured it was just going to be kind of like a reverse metaphor where the
Exactly.
client is telling me about the dream.
Hmm.
And in a discussion prior, she mentioned that she felt like it was her shadow self that she was dreaming of. And it was a creature that wanted to cause harm to her. So we regressed, and she was very uneasy about being in the presence of this creature. So I had her form a shield around her, and then she had her sacred object and her safe space. And then also we had to go to a third person perspective for her to feel safe. And she found out that I had her have a conversation with the shadow creature in parts therapy. Um, and she found out from it that it's made up of her unwanted discarded parts, and that there's 4 of them. And so we found out which each one was. And then I asked why each one, what was the reasoning for each one. Um, and we regressed to a point when one of them was discarded so far. But that's basically where we left off. I also, before we ended the session, I had her make an agreement with the shadow side that that they would work together. I asked both sides. And before she left that scene, she gave the shadow side a symbol as a kind of like a token of agreements that they would work together. And that was because she was worried that she would still have nightmares and have it come back in her dreams, because she said that it wanted to eat her, so she feared it. It wanted to consume her and become, I guess, join part back as a whole, but on its terms. So she gave it that symbol and it accepted it. And then we went back to the healing sacred space and we ended the session. So I'm kind of lost. I don't want to mess up. So I thought I should talk to you before I proceed.
It sounds like you did a great job.
Thank you.
Why was that a difficult one?
Um, I guess there's just so many parts, and then regression. Um, and I guess I was thinking that I would resolve everything all at once. And I think whenever we started, I was thinking, oh, this is going to be easy. We'll just regress and find out what it is. But
Right.
no.
Yeah. Yeah. It's more than just a dream analysis, right? Then you're doing the therapy about it.
Mhm.
So no, I thought you did a really good job. And, in the beginning, when you're learning all these techniques, it feels like a lot of work, because it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do next? And what am I doing the right thing and all of that? But it sounds like you did a great job. So you're going to see her again. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yes.
And then, so what is the question?
So I'm thinking that I would need to do inner child work. Once I'm not sure. So I'm thinking maybe parts at some point to integrate these parts back as a whole,
Okay, so,
and maybe inner child work, but I'm not quite sure.
okay, so I'm gonna take a step back here.
Okay.
So while you're doing this session, you're taking notes, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you're noticing that there's a lot of different pieces in here. There's the sabotaging one, and there's different pieces. So you've been handling that really well. When I have when I have a client who has a part that wants to consume, control, or devour, anything like that, I don't want to integrate them back together, because you might have a possession, not a possession or an attachment. It might be something different.
Okay.
Okay, so when that happens, I like to keep it separate, even though we always say in parts therapy, bring them back together.
Hmm.
That would be a really big exception, to keep them separated, and have her observe when the other one is taking over, or operating. And then, you can work from there. But I would keep them separate.
Would I, so this is kind of tricky, I guess, for me to even ask. So the parts that were discarded were laughter, desire, um,
And they were discarded like through her life. She let go of, like,
yes.
lost
So
it.
one of them I regressed to, and the laughter was discarded as the age of a toddler because she laughed at something that was inappropriate. And
Mhm.
so she was scolded. And so at that point it became discarded. Another one was high, um, like obnoxious high movement is what she said.
Mm.
Uh, hyperactiveness or something like that. Um, and so that was discarded. Um, and so what I'm wondering is, would I have her heal from discarding those parts of herself? And
What does she want to do with them? Did she want her laughter back, or like, what does she want?
um, it sounded like it, but I did not ask.
I would ask, what do you want to do with that?
Okay.
It seems like something you'd want to have back, but
Mhm.
um, yeah, in which case then you would, go and find where she left it. Where is it? And, or is it covered up? What is, how it would be similar to object imagery, I guess.
She's thinking it's within the creature because he's made up of it.
It's made up of her laughter.
It's
Oh,
made up,
of
yeah, I guess, the discarded parts
the
of it.
discarded pieces. Okay. So, I guess, I mean, because I'm on the outside here, so I'm not there, so I don't know all the details intimately, but I would just keep asking a lot of questions, and making sure that you're clear on what all this is. So if this is a creature that is all the discarded features of her, does she want, maybe they have to be looked at individually. Some things we do need to discard, right? Like obnoxious behavior. Okay, okay, I'm not 3 anymore. I need to discard, right? And so we don't necessarily want to bring that back. But so you might want to look at the pieces that are there, in which case it might be a part of her. It might not be an entity, but I would look at the pieces first and maybe integrate one at a time and find out why it got lost. For me, I think it's always interesting for the client to know what was the circumstance that led to giving that up. It's sort of like giving away some of your power. Okay, you laughed at an inappropriate time, but that might have just been she was too young, she was naive, she was untrained, it didn't have the sophistication, whatever. And so she gave up the laughter, but that's not what should have been given up, right? What she needed was to acquire some um, sophistication, I guess would be the word, right? She needed to learn discernment of the situation, that, this is not the time to laugh, but not giving away the laughter, but letting go of maybe the impulse to respond before understanding the situation, whatever it is. You'd have to ask her. So you'd lead her back to that and find out what that was. Because if you try to replace the laughter, but in the back of her own head, she keeps thinking, but I'm going to use it inappropriately, she's still going to keep it under wraps, right? Because that hasn't been resolved. So inner child, take her back to the age when she gave that up. And this time, instead of giving it up, she can, you can have some conversations. She can talk to her younger self and explain the situation and explain why it's not appropriate at this moment. Usually the parents just go, hey, shut up. That's not, you're not supposed to do that, right? But the kid doesn't know why, right? So now explaining to the young person why it's inappropriate, how she can discern that, distinguish that in the future, in future communications, and and find that it's safe to have her laughter, because what she really needs is to know when to use it. Okay. And then the same with the other parts that were discarded, like obnoxious behavior. Okay, well, and rather than bringing that in, taking a look at what is the obnoxious behavior and how can she do that in a different way. Instead of being obnoxious, could you be playful? Or could you use that energy to be helpful? Or some other use of the energy rather than just it's sort of like, well, I did that wrong when I was 4, and so I'm wrong and that needs to go away. And instead, no, you're not wrong, you're just uneducated and untrained. And that's just part of the growing up, is you'll do a whole bunch of stuff inappropriately growing up. We all do. And then we learn that that didn't work out. So now we'll do it a different way.
Okay.
So I would just help her, and maybe with every single little piece. And then all those shadows could just dissolve, and then that creature might not be there. And maybe the reason the creature wants to devour her is because it's all that pent up energy that, it's just like, wow, so it really could be a part of her. And then, once you've kind of separated out what are we going to keep, what are we going to transform into something more useful, maybe the shadow just doesn't have to be, the monster doesn't have to be present or threatening.
And then we wouldn't have to integrate it back because
No.
it would just be non-threatening.
Well, it would just disappear, I would imagine, because you've taken away all of its substance.
Yeah. Okay. That would make sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never even thought about it, the possibility of it being an entity.
Yeah. I'm always on the lookout for that, because I work with that quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a ton, but I know you don't have a ton of time. I'm keeping a list of them, and some of them are more important, like the ones that I asked, than others. Others are just kind of like thoughts that I just kind of wondered, and maybe they could be answered in class, or other students might ask, or I just might send you an email if I just can't figure it out, I guess. But
Okay.
yeah. But I mean,
well, I don't know. I mean, if all the rest of yours can kind of wait, I can ask Jody and
Yeah.
Leah if either of them have questions. Jody, do you have any questions?
I'm actually learning a ton from Candace's questions. So I don't mind at all, Candace, if you want to keep asking questions, because I was able to get some insight from quite a few of those about some of the people I'm working with pain, for example, some new approaches and different things. We've done object imagery, but I definitely got some more about different questions. And I've done that a couple of times with going through the body. I actually had, I'll just share this because it's interesting. I had a client who had a stress-induced stroke, actually. So she had worked with me previously and around something different. And then she just had so much pressure and so much stress on her, and she was caregiving and just not taking good care of herself. And so it's probably a year later, after we had worked through some other things we had worked through in the past, things having to do with the past, like romantic relationship and some issues there, but this was all related to her family. And she actually ended up coming back to me to do some sessions afterwards when she was starting to recover, because she did actually lose some mobility. And so the doctor said there's no other reason, like there's no other physical reason. Like, we think it's completely stress induced. And so we were working then around, of course, taking pressure and stress off of herself. But we also worked, and this was one of my favorite things that I've done, I think, of going into her body in that way and working on reconnecting the nerve endings.
Oh, cool.
To help to regain her mobility. And it just was incredible results. And so, of course, with her occupational therapy and physical therapy and all the other things that she was doing, working with her mind, like you were saying, Mary Lee, like reconnecting those parts of herself, and she had been mad at, she had emotions towards that side of her body that wasn't working anymore. And so we were able to release the negative emotions and to, find some more, compassion and understanding and awareness of her body, and then, help her to start healing. And so, like I said, I definitely related to some of the things that I learned a lot. So Candace, you can feel free to ask your questions as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I'm glad they were good questions. I'm glad they were helpful.
Yeah, they're great. Yeah, all the examples. That's why I love coming on the calls. It's been several years now since I originally took the course with Mary Lee, but I love coming on all of her training calls. When she invites me, I'm happy to participate. I know, I'm always welcome. Thank you for that. I love it because I love hearing everyone's examples, because I feel like we can always learn from each other.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I wanted to do this call. Make it more public than just responding to Candace alone. The other thing that we're going to be learning in this class too, this upcoming class, is about parallel universes and alternative aspects of ourselves. And so the other thing with your pain client is, he's maybe keeping him stuck in this film strip, this particular, path of light, this timeline, that's going to keep him in this repetitive injury issue. And some of the work that we do in hypnotherapy actually takes the person over to an alternative timeline where he is better. So, there is an aspect where he didn't get the injury, or the injury wasn't that bad, or he healed right away, or something else happened. And there are ways that we can move them over to there so that that heals quicker, better, or instantaneously. And that's one really good explanation for miracle healings. When people suddenly can hear and they hadn't before, or they can suddenly stand up when their legs had never worked. But it takes faith, it takes belief, and you can't hold on to the old version and try to be in the new version at the same time. He would have to completely let go and be over here. But that could take some sessions. It'll take a while to get that to happen. And, he'd have to believe, right? That's why they're called faith healings. Right? but there's a scientific explanation for that. A good movie to watch or book to read is The Elegant Universe by Green. What's his first name? Brian Greene. I like the movie. I've read the book, which is good because you can take your time and really think about it. But they did a documentary that is just spectacular. It's like, big time Hollywood. So it illustrates, the black holes and parallel universes. And he's a physicist and he's explaining it. It's just awesome. Yeah, he's
I
really.
really like whenever there's somebody with scientific knowledge, but a more expansive thought process.
Right.
I like that combination.
Yes, exactly. Where religion and science meet, right?
Yes.
All this spirituality that we are aware of, intuitively, but now there's scientific explanation that supports that. So it's really awesome. But that's some of the work that we can do here. And we'll be talking about that in the training.
Okay.
Wow,
Leah,
I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Wow. So it
fun.
sounds a little bit, Mary Lee, like a role model in a way. Is it going to be kind of similar to that? Like this other part of you, this other version of you in this parallel universe, using that as a role model, maybe taking some of the things back with you. Okay.
Absolutely. That's a great way to get there. So using the role model, yeah. To pull them over there. Yeah. And, and it might take a few times. I mean, a stubborn man is going to be a hard one to, just jump on the bandwagon there, perhaps, but you never know. You never know. And that's a great suggestion, Jody. I just wanted to ask Leah. Leah, do you have any questions? We'd love to see you. I love that image, by the way, but there you are. Oh, you're in a car.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm heading out to Gold Bar. Hi.
All three of you are going to be in class coming up, so that'll be fun. So you get to know each other now.
Yeah.
So Leah, do you have any questions for us today? We have just a few more minutes.
No, but actually you did say something that just made me wonder. So when we get to a certain age, is it harder for the hypnosis to be more effective the older we get? Like the gentleman who's elderly, 60 something and has a disability.
The elderly.
Well, I'm almost there too, so
I'm way over that.
I'm using the wrong word, sorry.
That's okay. That's
As we get older though, does that have an effect?
It depends on your mindset. So if you have a flexible mind and you've been, you engage in transformation, throughout your life, it's going to be easier. I do think that we do get a little more set in our ways, but with personal growth, that sort of thing, if that person has been doing things all their lives, that won't get as crusty, that won't get as stuck. It's people who, I know people who are 30 that, are stuck and, their opinion is, and they won't change even with evidence, right? So,
right.
So I think it's more the personality, although, I will say that getting older, there are more patterns. What my husband says is we become a caricature of ourselves.
That's great.
So the grumpy be a curmudgeon and
yeah, I love that word. Someone called me a crone the other day and I was really caught off guard by it. So
was that a positive or a negative thing for you?
It felt negative to me. I wasn't really quite ready for that term yet, I guess. Even though I know I'm in that phase.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah, no, but Candace has some great questions that I actually have picked up with too. So thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, great. Well, we'll do it again. So if, anybody who has questions, we can come on and discuss all of you or whoever watches the replay. if, if you have really good questions that would be helpful for the whole class, we'll just come on and do a little impromptu Q&A. I think it really is helpful. So.
I do have one more question, and I promise this one's quick.
Okay.
I've seen reference to sacred journey, and I cannot remember where I read, maybe on the module somewhere about sacred journey, but I'm wondering, is there a script? I couldn't find it in the book,
Well,
and I didn't get in the script book either.
sacred journey, soul retrieval, communicating with spirit guides, working with spirits, entities, UFOs, all of that is in the second class, which is the transpersonal wellness coaching. And my coach wants me to change the title of that, but there's a second module or a second training that you can take. And it's more
Okay.
the advanced, highly spiritual class. Jody's taken it.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so we delve into those weirder things. It's more interesting, not maybe more interesting, but definitely on the spiritual level, we delve into those there.
Okay, and so if I was working on inner conflict and indecision on the flow chart, it includes sacred journey. But if I
Well,
don't have the tools for it, could I just leave it
Yeah,
out and still be successful? Or okay,
yeah, I mean, those are all suggestions. And what happened was the people that were in the other class wanted a flow chart, and they'll be using all of the techniques that you're learning in this
okay,
class. And so instead of making a whole other flow chart and keeping it separate, I just put it in there. And then, if you continue and learn those other techniques, then it'll all be in one document for you.
okay, makes sense. I just thought I was missing something.
Yeah, it's like, where did
Thanks
that
for
go?
clearing that up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could definitely still be successful with all the other ones, Candace. And then you could always do reverse metaphor,
Mhm.
something like that in that kind of a place. But yeah, the second class is well worth it, absolutely. But it's definitely a much deeper dive into, like Mary Lee said, some of the more spiritual aspects or some of those interesting things.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was really glad that I did it.
Sounds
But
very interesting.
yeah, I was practicing for a while with just the first class, like for quite a while before I did the second one with Mary Lee's techniques. And yeah, you can definitely do everything without those. It's just like a bonus. It's like an and then some. I feel like it's just the extra of, okay, now if I want to dive into these fun things with people, I have a few more techniques to do that with.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, because it's quite another education, working with people who have memories of UFO abductions. That's a whole body of work on its own. I mean, actually, in the spiritual one, the transpersonal wellness, I could probably divide that into 5 classes. And again, like the class you're taking, where that could definitely be a lot of classes.
Mhm.
There's also a cohesiveness to have it all together. I used to teach them kind of separated out, and then, people are going out there and they're not really well-rounded. So you get all of that. And the same with the spiritual, all the spiritual techniques. I thought I'll just put them all together here. So it's more of the advanced work.
Okay.
Yeah, something to look forward to.
Really good. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're good for today then. Gather up your questions, and we can do another spontaneous call one of these days.
Okay.
And
Thank
then
you.
we'll have the training coming up starting on the 26th.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, ladies. Thank you for being here. It's been delightful.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for all the questions, Candace. And I will see you and Leah in the class in September.
Yeah. See y'all in the class.
All right.
See ya.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.